This is your First Alert Weather Breakdown, a deep dive into how weather works with meteorologist Evan Thomason.
Welcome on to the First Alert Weather Breakdown. I'm meteorologist Evan Thomason. Thanks for joining us here at KSLA News 12. Really appreciate it. Hey, it's Tuesday. It's now into the work week, at least for you guys. And my work week. Anyways, the point is, 4-day work week here for you, heading into this work week. Thankfully, we have lots of cooler than average conditions. Hey, I'm at least kind of a fan of that, at least for the time being. How often do you get to say that they're highs in the 80s here heading into the summer months, especially for the ArkLaTex? Don't worry, for those of you who are looking forward to, enjoying summer, as Memorial Day was the unofficial start of it, there's 90s coming back next week. Plenty of them are going to be in store. So enjoy the 80s. Enjoy the cooler mornings in the 60s here over the next couple mornings. But unfortunately, we do have to get to the bad part of the forecast, which is talking about the rain. And we'll have that more on your local forecast here coming on up. So, yes, not only that, we have a fun day here for the day today. So we got rain ahead of us here over the next couple of days, which I know might not be as fun. But, hey, we got an interview coming up with Joel Young. He's on the other line listening to me rant. And I feel like every time I have a weather personality on, I feel like I feel like I always have a spotlight on me. But now that I have another meteorologist on, I'm like being judged for my forecast, saying, Anyways, he's not. I see you in the corner, Joel, by the way. Yeah. You're like, oh, no judgment here. No, it's good. Anyways, I'm ranting on. Joel's on the other line. The point is, I'll get him on. We're going to talk about ArkLaTex weather, and we're going to talk about Arkansas weather. He's a meteorologist over at Little Rock, Arkansas. So our DMAs kind of just mesh along a little bit on the borderline. So essentially, we're just going to talk about severe weather, what's been happening over the last couple days, also the last couple weeks as well, and we'll dive into the heat as well. That has been here before in a little bit. We did break some record highs, remember, earlier on in May, and we'll go over that and see what we're kind of outlooking here for the rest of your summer. But anyways, let's get into the local forecast, and then we'll talk with Joel Young. Let's get to our graphics together, Evan. Here you go. Well, the Mattress Plus Skycam here in Shreveport. It is a cloudy, gloomy look here for the day today so far. Although I will say, even though it's a wet work week, and that can already be said about the day today, we got rid of our rain at the best part of the hours, the overnight hours where nobody was out. Everybody was sleeping. Essentially, it was raining here in Shreveport for about 2 in the morning until 6 in the morning. No harm, no foul to pretty much anybody. And not only that, rain wasn't severe at all. Didn't really have any warnings go off, just some moderate rainfall at best all around the ArkLaTex here in the overnight hours. And that's going to carry on for another round here, maybe a little bit later on in the future when we might not get as lucky. In fact, we won't get as lucky. We got more rain coming here during some of our afternoons coming up. We'll look at that ahead. All right, beyond that, let's look elsewhere. Northern half of the region, Texarkana, Window World Skycam here. It's another cloudy and gloomy look, pretty much similar around there. I'm hoping we get some peaks of sunshine a little bit later on this afternoon, but overall, this kind of goes to show you what's happening. Lots of moisture trapped within the ArkLaTex. Still got temperatures in the upper 60s and lower 70s. Believe it or not, that's impressive. When you have temperatures in the upper 60s in late May, past 10 a.m., honestly. 68 in Texarkana, 68 in Center. Got 75 for you in Shreveport. Highs today around in the lower 80s here. 82 in Texarkana, 82 in Stamps, 80 in Nashville, 83 in Vivian, 83 also in Atlanta. Meanwhile, highs across eastern Texas, 83 in Carthage, 84 in Longview, 81 for Dangerfield. Before getting to northwest Louisiana, got highs around 85 degrees in Shreveport, 86 for Natchitoches this afternoon. So, yeah, much cooler than average. I will say it feels like temperatures might get up to 90 degrees. So it still will feel very warm and kind of like summer in a way. But, just that intense heat is going to be dormant here for the next little while. So far it feels like temperatures, again, still getting up into the upper 80s here, mostly locally into the ArkLaTex. At least the temperatures for tomorrow morning, mostly getting down into the upper 60s for a good portion of us, lower 70s and for some of us. Meanwhile, feels like temperatures for tomorrow afternoon. It's kind of a carbon copy each and every single afternoon. We kind of hanging tight to a stationary front that's not really budging, which is not really budging our weather conditions here. Again, lows back down into the upper 60s, lower 70s here. There is that said stationary front. It continues to feed us round after round after round. You get the point of storms here coming on into this work week. We've already been under this since, oh man, back on Saturday, I want to say. We that's pretty much the day we started with this. I might even be forgetting a day, but we started out with storms nonstop Saturday, Sunday across southwestern Arkansas, also in McCurtain County and southeastern Oklahoma too, and that spread into the rest of the ArkLaTex. Remember back on Monday, yesterday. We had more storms continue on today, and we got more being fed into us here over the next several days. So that's the setup. Just so you know, what we're experiencing continuously here over the next couple days is, again, more rain. But you can kind of see that on the IR satellite picture. Look at, in fact, I believe I can actually move around the camera so you can see on the podcast. Believe it or not, yeah, again, this is something cool we can do on the podcast, maneuver around the camera live. Almost, look at that. That's almost like a fire hydrant just going off and essentially getting off a lot of moisture in areas of Texas, southern Texas at that. And all of that moisture continues to be trailed up to the northeast. And guess where we are in the ArkLaTex? The northeast. So we're continuing to get round of storm after storm. As I said, the round from the morning is now off in Mississippi and continuing to move into Alabama, so that's done with. But the point is, we got more on the way. So we got a good amount of cloud cover here for now, but hopefully, especially with the pace at which this is looking at, especially with this 3-hour loop, it looks like we might work in some dry conditions and some sunshine that we're already starting to see in areas like Tyler outside of the ArkLaTex, but hopefully we get some sunshine here for this afternoon before dealing with more storms. So the active weather pattern is continuing locally here around the ArkLaTex. More rounds of storms. The focus is also shifting southward, which I will honestly say is good news. Again, especially because the last 3 days we've been continuously having storms in areas like southwestern Arkansas and also southeastern Oklahoma. But now it's moving into the southern end of the ArkLaTex from high 20 down southward towards Nacogdoches and Natchitoches here. I will say the best news of all, look at that third bullet point. No severe weather threats. We don't even have a marginal risk that's been issued by the Storm Prediction Center at all, I believe, over the next 3 days. If anything, I think it cuts a corner of Natchitoches, but that's it. And that's, again, only the marginal risk, which is the slimmest and littlest chance you can have at having any chance of severe weather, essentially. So the point is, no tornadoes, no hail, no strong winds. The bulk of what we're dealing with is just heavy rainfall moving in and out of the region that you're essentially going to be playing dodgeball with here over the next couple of days. We will have some good breaks. Again, this is not just going to be a washout for the rest of today. In fact, again, it's just stray showers maybe showing up mainly in the northern end of the ArkLaTex, but most of us should be hanging around with the sunshine here throughout the rest of your Tuesday. Then Wednesday, we got another one of those big rounds of storms coming along out of the southwest, pushing upward, there we go, right direction, northeast direction across the ArkLaTex in the areas of Shreveport and Mount Pleasant. That's going to continue across the rest of the region there before getting a little bit of a brief break there for most of Thursday. Thursday looks like it's calming down here for the most part. If anything, maybe some late showers across, as you kind of saw there, skirting across areas of southwestern Arkansas and across McCurtain County as well. But that's what the bulk of what we're getting here from Thursday and Friday. But again, that next system that's going to be coming through is on Wednesday. Some of that could be tailored into Thursday morning as well. And then on your long-term forecast, Friday and Saturday. Hey, we got 2 dry days put together. That's a nice streak. Look, that's not saying much in the grand scheme of things, but if you consider our recent record with rain happening almost every single day for the past 4 or 5 days, we'll take anything. We'll take anything, especially with dry weather heading into Friday and Saturday. Unfortunately, we got another round coming in. Looks like into the region here for your Sunday. So at the end of the ball game over the next 7 days, a good amount of rain. And again, look where most of that is focused in the southern half of the ArkLaTex. Still have somewhere between a half inch to a whole inch of rain expected for the northern end of the ArkLaTex. But keep in mind, this is spread out again over 7 days. 7 days, which, just so you know, we received more rain than this just from yesterday alone. That's also why we don't have as much of a flash flood threat. We're dealing with rain, yes, but it's going to be rain actively pushing across the region. We're not going to have any flash flood warnings with any rain showers stuck in place like what we saw on Sunday, for example, again, across southwestern Arkansas. So for your weekend, watch out, again, for those spotty storms that could be showing up here on Sunday, but it does look like Saturday. Better day to plan your outdoor activities. The last thing I do want to mention about the weekend, That's when temperatures finally start to warm up. Highs are going to be in the mid to low 80s throughout the entire work week ahead, including today. So high temperatures starting to get back into summer, but not until Sunday. 90 degrees are on the way for around Sunday and Monday, heading into next work week. And it looks like we do have highs being sustained in the 90s once we actually have a sunny work week coming up, which appears to be next week, which is the first week of June. But as for this week, again, we still got a lot of rain to get through, especially for Wednesday afternoon. I think that's the main system I'm watching out for here in the work week. Still a few stray showers on Tuesday. Some storms likely to happen on kind of the ends of Thursday. I think Thursday during the day should be okay. And maybe a few spotty storms left over here for your Friday. And then we do not go over traffic. I forgot. But anyways, there we go. Full look at your 7-day forecast. Bam. 80s. Very impressive for a summer week. Enjoy it if you're kind of, bracing on to just a full if you're what's the word I'm looking for? If you're just looking forward to cooler temperatures around, all right? You can enjoy this week before the rest of summer hits, all right? It's pretty much the first official week of summer. Anyways, we're gonna take a quick break. If you have any questions about that forecast, you feel free to answer them on YouTube. YouTube's where we have our comment live stream pulled up. You can also ask questions to Joel as well, who'll be coming up after this. We're gonna take a 1-minute quick commercial break, and then we will come back, and Joel will be back. We'll be back right after this. Hey, welcome back to First Alert Weather Breakdown. Thanks again for watching. Now, let's introduce our guest of the day, guest of the week. I've been trying to get a guest on every single week. Anyways, this week we got Joel Young. There you are. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Getting the week started here. You were talking about during your forecast, saying I would be judging. No, it was a great catch up because I took Memorial Day off. I was like, the storms kind of got out of our area, kind of pushed into yours, unfortunately. But I took a day to kind of catch my breath. I'm going to get back to work today. So I was here shortly after this interview. I was going to get started on my forecast for this afternoon because I find that it's so much easier to just go ahead and knock out that forecast before you get into work because you've got a meeting, you've got somebody who's coming to talk to you and you're visiting and people come talk to you at work. It can be kind of distracting. So it's easier to get that stuff done before you go to work sometimes.
Yeah, in solitude. And I guess that's why they put us sometimes in our solitude cave. At least that's how it feels in the
at least in the morning shift. I will say, at least on the morning shift, and I'm not sure what time you get into work, but your forecast time is probably a little more quiet. Nobody's there to, not that any, and I love talking to my coworkers. I love all my coworkers who I work with, but it's your forecast time has to be somewhat uninterrupted because, that's when you're trying to predict the weather, and it's kind of hard to predict that sometimes.
Yeah, I understand. You get all tangled up with everything, especially when it comes to severe weather, which it did happen this past weekend, believe it or not, when we kind of talked about this a good bit as well. Thankfully, no tornadic reports, but rain, lots of it. And I remember answering so many questions off of Facebook, like, "Are you sure that's it? Is it only rain coming?" I'm like, "Yes, but there's a lot of it coming." I mean, we broke a daily rainfall record in Shreveport with 3 inches and a quarter, I believe. And I believe that some of that flash flooding definitely happened in southwestern Arkansas, moved up into you guys in
Sure.
your neck of the woods on Sunday, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. We had Sunday afternoon and evening. Just, I mean, when you looked at the radar, it was just like red all over the place, and it was, a lot of wind there, but the ground is saturated, and those trees get way more. They're much more vulnerable after the ground is saturated. We've had a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially, I haven't looked at the climate statistics of how much rain we've already gotten this year, but I can believe that it's already above average for both of our regions
For
by a
sure.
tremendous amount. If you have the ground already saturated, I mean, it can only soak up so much.
Absolutely. That was probably the worst part about, I mean, you remember the first week in April, you started out the week, there was about a 4 day span. Wednesday, the 2nd, the 3rd, 4th, and then the 5th was a Saturday. We had an incredible amount of rainfall. I believe just south of Little Rock, we ended up with about 15 inches for the week. So a lot of our surplus for this year, yeah, a lot of our surplus for this year was focused on that one week in April. And at the very end of the week, the I hate to say, but like sort of like a finale of the week, if you will, the last round was just a big wall of wind that came right through the metro after we had had all that rain. And people, I think it pretty quickly you could tell it was just mostly damaging wind. Obviously, it wasn't a tornado because of how widespread it was, but you would think it was a tornado. I mean, I've seen tornadoes that did less damage than this. Huge oak trees, old oak trees, smashing through homes, in the metro, and it's bad
Hmm.
anytime it affects anywhere, but you have a high volume of people. We had unfortunately had a loss of life during that high wind event. Um, it was a child in a mobile home. It was terrible, but there was also uh, near deaths. And I think those are things you don't hear about because a lot of times, those people are protected by HIPAA. They go to the hospital, they have, go through, you know, uh, what's necessary after all those injuries. But I know of at least one person who, uh, they were hit by a tree and they were having to have a blood transfusion as they removed the tree off. So it's been a very, very bad year and stories that we don't hear about all the time on the air. You just hear the numbers, but just the impacts this year has been, especially, in this area. And I know y'all have had your storms, your communities that are impacted, but it has been such a rough year uh, for so many people.
Yeah, definitely. Just to kind of tailor onto your point as well, and something I want to kind of ask you about. There was a big moderate risk right on top of, I believe it was northeast Arkansas and Kentucky.
Yeah.
Now all the headlines
Yes.
are mostly up towards Kentucky, where lots of damaging tornadoes happen. I believe we had one long track tornado that spanned miles and miles and miles along the
Sure.
southern end of Kentucky. I forget what towns. London,
London, Kentucky
Kentucky.
was
Yeah,
hit
that's one
hard.
of them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Jonesboro, I
And
believe, was included in that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and a lot of times because of how frequent we've been affected by severe weather, when you start talking about an event, I have to stop and think, okay, which event was this? What day was this? But that day wasn't that long ago, obviously. Uh, we thought storms would initiate probably 5 or 6 in the afternoon. That cap held tight, and we didn't get storm, which is good for us. Which basically meant for those of you at home, and I'm sure you've talked about, Evan, the cap on the atmosphere, how that can hold back the storms for a while longer, and that's how we avoided that event. Was just the cap broke up toward Jonesboro, and those storms took off to Kentucky. But for us, we largely avoided anything big. We ended up with a couple of tornado warnings, didn't have any tornado touchdowns from that one. But then, that was what was believed to be the big day. And then you get a little marginal, slight risk one day, and then you have something pops up, and you're like, you have to stay vigilant all the time.
Yeah, it's wild, honestly. I mean, we're literally talking about this morning and the rain this morning. Almost, we were talking about this off air, but we almost had a tornado warning being almost did. It did not happen, but in areas of Sabine Parish, right to the west side of Natchitoches, we almost had a tornado warning that was kind of in the works by National Weather Service in the overnight hours associated with the overnight threat that we had. But the thing of the matter is, we didn't even have a severe weather risk on with our storms
Yeah.
really late last night, and that continues on over the next couple of days. And I'm hoping that this doesn't happen because Storm Prediction Center doesn't have us a line for any severe weather risk, and certainly not a tornado one. But still, it happened. So.
And that's where I just keep looking at just constantly looking at the HRRR model, just all those short runs, the rapid refresh, just because, there might be something that pops up. I don't think the models handle convection in the month of May. Just during that transition season between spring and summer, you have all this, it on the map, it looks sloppy. And then, I will say one thing that's difficult is every round of storms, what happens depends on the round before. And let's say you have waves of 5 or 6 rounds of storms, and you think the 6th round of storms is going to be on the morning of one day, but that first 2, maybe the models didn't handle those well. Well, if you think it's not handling those well, it's not handling that either, so model initialization and that type thing, it's a challenge this time of year.
Big time, big time. Honestly, yeah. I use the her with like an asterisk almost because it's incredibly short term. There's been times where in my early years of like being a meteorologist, I didn't really I use different models, yes, but I didn't really understand the accuracy as much with the her, and I take it quite literally. And so I predict like this thing happening on the herd tomorrow, like this cluster of storms, and then poof, it wouldn't happen at all.
Yeah, it's not perfect. It's not perfect, no. But it's going to be your first hint, and graph as well, obviously. But I look at any model with an asterisk there, but I think about the that rapid refresh, that short term. It is good to have just in case some of your longer range don't pick it up.
Mm-hmm. While this hasn't happened recently, the heat has been here. I will say, me and myself, I'm a cool weather fan, so I'm enjoying this week of 80s that we have for going, especially.
I heard you mention you had 90s in your forecast. I don't. I'm excited about that.
Well, I do next week. All right.
Right.
I'm just taking it one week at a time. We're getting 80s, and the thing of the matter is we went from a high. I think we had a record high actually in Shreveport back on.
I heard that.
I think it was on Sunday. This past Sunday, we had a record high, I think, of 96 degrees, and our high yesterday. Our high yesterday, I don't remember it. I didn't write it down, but it was projected to be in the lower 80s. So it went off like the flip of a switch, and Memorial Day is the unofficial start of summer, and it did quite the opposite. In fact, that's happening, as I said, all work week long. It's kind of weird because usually when you get these cold fronts, you have the cooled air come in here, and then poof, it goes the next day afterward. But it's here to stay for now. But I was just gonna say, have you had any record highs, any hot heat yet? You're
not
looking
really
forward
any
to it.
record heat. We had some close. I think we had some upper 80s that came within like 5 degrees of record, but it wasn't nothing like that. A lot of the rain has helped us avoid that, and I think it's possible that to some extent, the saturated ground might keep us from extreme heat, at least for the first half of June, maybe.
That's a good point.
But eventually it'll catch up. It'll catch up to us. We're going to have, but this time of year, if you're going to have below average temperatures, most of the time it's because you have rain. And I think that's going to be a big part. But how often, though, this time of year, at least for us when we're, here in Arkansas, in the month of May, usually our severe risks are to our north, and they have been a lot, in Missouri, Kentucky,
even
northern
Minnesota
Oklahoma,
and
Kansas.
Wisconsin a little while ago.
Right. This is not the time of year where you have the risk stay south of you down in your area. Usually by now you're out of the severe weather, the tornado risks, I should say. typically you're kind of slipping into that summer air mass thunderstorms, pop-ups this time of year. But we've had a little bit more action here lately, unfortunately, this far south. And so, that's part of that is keeping us on the cooler end of things going into the early summer. But I think I heard you kind of mention to your viewers earlier, enjoy it now while it lasts, because it's not going to be like this all summer. And I know if that's the case for us here in Little Rock, it's the case for you down in Shreveport.
Mm-hmm. As I said, I like to bring you on to consider ourselves like neighbors,
We are neighbors.
We are neighbors. We are neighbors. Anyways, I think another point of that is during summer months, obviously, don't get nearly as much rain to help cool us off at all. It's the dry months for a reason.
Oh, and it's good news for the farmers, at least.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we had a lot of flooding, so that's been bad news, obviously, for the farmers, but especially those who are right along the rivers. But we're going into the growing season with a surplus. So, we've had a lot of droughts in August, September. That tends to be our driest time of the year. We've seen some of that at least in the last few years here. It's not a bad thing that we're at least we've had plenty of rain. Has it been too much? Yes, absolutely. And some farmers will absolutely suffer from that and have and will. I think there's been some hope that they could, because I know like with a lot of those farmers, especially along the White River, the Washita River, which runs down into your part of the area.
Red River.
I believe it actually runs over into, Red River. But I feel like especially the Washita and the White River valleys and even the Arkansas, a lot of those low-lying farmers, their water's been standing there for a while, even a lot of April. A lot of these fields were submerged. So those farmers, they're just hoping that and in a lot of cases it has drained off, but they're hoping they could get their planting done, because by early April, a lot of them are hoping they've had that done, or they've already lost some of their seeds. So,
yeah, absolutely, man. It's been rough, but that's good news coming in with a surplus, though. It's always just about finding that balance, and it's so delicate.
There's never a perfect balance around here, right?
No,
it unfortunately isn't.
Yeah, last thing I'll talk about. The last time we talked on this was one of the first. I think it was like the second or third week we had the podcast here. This podcast debuted back in July. I was going to
say, so that was around July 9th, if I remember correctly, because Beryl came through on my husband's birthday. So I remember it was that next day or within a week after that, early to mid-July. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, hurricane season, I didn't even think about this until just getting onto this podcast. It's June 1st, which is Monday. I don't remember what day of the week June 1st is. I can't look at a calendar.
Memorial Day came so early this year, it kind of throws me off. I feel like June is now here because we've already had it. Starts on the Sunday. Sunday is the 1st. Yeah.
That matters, but I've told my viewers, at least in particular, I am keeping the tropical graphic storm until an area of interest shows up. All right, let's not mention it again at all, because even something like Beryl happened in July and was so rare. It was a Cat 5 in July.
It was. You're right.
Everybody forgets about that.
You're right. I forget about that because you're right. It hit. Gosh, and you would think that I would remember that, but I remember it as a 1. Hitting Houston and came up. Obviously, y'all were on the right side. We were on, and when we say the right side, not the best side, the physically the right side. But how many tornado warnings did y'all have? Y'all had just like
63, I believe. It was an amazing amount.
And how many tornadoes did y'all actually have? Y'all had a number.
I think it was somewhere in the upper 40s. I think it was somewhere in the upper 40s.
Most of those did verify.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of those warnings did verify.
So it was wild.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're hoping for the best.
That was something. Yeah. Hopefully no more barrels.
Hopefully
no more barrels. No more. None of that.
None of that dragging it up into our neck of the woods. Yep.
Right.
Anyways, thanks for joining very much, Joel.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah, I got to have you again more often.
That's always, exactly. I was listening to you mention all of your town names earlier. You have a Dangerfield, you got Natchitoches, is that right?
Natchitoches and Nacogdoches.
Yeah. It's just like here in Arkansas. There's always some fun names, but it's always kind of fun to listen to other meteorologists talk about their town names, and you nailed them.
Thanks. I've passed geography, at least on the early
Or at least I
stages.
think. I don't know. I'm not from your area, so.
Fair enough. Thanks for
But
joining
great
us, Joel.
catching up with you.
All
Definitely.
right.
Always a pleasure. Take
I'll
care.
talk to you next time. Well, thanks again to him for coming on out. Thanks for watching the first look with a breakdown. I'll see you again tomorrow, 11:30. Actually, I believe I won't see you tomorrow. CJ will. CJ will be on tomorrow at 10:30. He'll be back here. That'll be cool. Do I know what he's doing? No. Which leaves a surprise to you, actually, here at home. Well, I'm not at your home, but you get the point. Thanks for watching First Look with a Breakdown. That was a cool interview. I'm going to try to do interviews more often, especially on my end. I got some ideas for some people I want to try to bring on more. Try to get more creative. Try to bring on new people. As I said, we haven't seen Joel. The second time has been on the First Look with a Breakdown for those of you true listeners out there who have, I won't say true, but for those of you who have been with us for a while, essentially since the inauguration. We're coming up on the year birthday at First Look with a Breakdown, believe it or not. This, again, debuted back in July of last year, and we're almost to June. Thanks for watching again, First Look with a Breakdown. Have a great rest of your day. And CJ will see you tomorrow on the First Look with a Breakdown at 10:30. Be there, be square. Most importantly, be weather aware. Have a good one.